Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kim Seltzer, a dating and makeover expert, where I will help you build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. Think finding a partner should be really organic and romantic, for it to just happen when you least expect it. You know, like you go to the grocery store and your knight in shining armor just goes up to you and it's true love, and you don't put out any effort whatsoever. And conversely, you might even think that online dating is full of creepy people, like creepy men, questionable women. I've heard it all. And you may have gone on so many bad dates that you've given up. And you're feeling demoralized that the idea of striking up yet another conversation with yet another strange person fills you with dread or anxiety. But the truth is, if you haven't met someone yet and you aren't meeting many new people, you could be waiting a very long time. And I see this a lot with my clients. And as I say, your dating portfolio should look like your financial portfolio. You should diversify as much as possible in order to get the best results. And virtual dating is just another way to meet people, like meeting people in a coffee shop or with a matchmaker or getting set up by a friend. The more you put yourself out there, you are raising your chances for success. I mean, statistically speaking, that is true. And the most valuable thing that online dating offers, quite honestly, is that it gives you the potential to meet a lot of new people that you otherwise wouldn't have. And I know you're hoping to meet that person you dreamed about, the soulmate, the one. But when this doesn't happen immediately, the process becomes discouraging. And there are a lot of ways to take control and make it, dare I say, a more pleasant experience. And yes, online dating can be pleasant. I promise you. And I see this a lot with my clients too, where they'll, come to me for coaching. They say, "Oh, I hate online dating. I just want to meet people naturally." And I'll put them on a dating regimen where they go online just to practice flirting, and voila, suddenly they have a boyfriend. And so there are ways to take power over the situation and begin to date smarter, not harder, but smarter, by having a dating plan in place. Once you have a dating profile that converts, use it to practice effective communication, learn to set boundaries, flirt, have the right perspective. It all kind of falls in place. And it will work for you. I will never forget. There's this woman that I worked with. She was 68 years old. And she had this limiting belief that she wasn't going to find her true love online. She's like, "Oh, I'm too old for this. People my age don't meet online." And she had been in all these like toxic relationships. And she thought that app dating was just not for her. And so, and then she also said that she thought they were all a bunch of scammers, which, by the way, there are scammers, both not only online, but they're offline too. I have news for you. Like, those scammers you see online are also walking around in the coffee shop. People think somehow it's just concentrated online. Anyway, I put her on this dating diet of using online dating to practice breaking some bad habits. And she was definitely doing some things wrong that I could detect while we were doing the online dating together. I'd be going into her profile, I would see her conversations. And so we started cracking the code. I mean, she was the classic over caretaker. She paid more attention to what men thought versus how she felt. And she never really learned how to date. So she would just jump into one relationship and another. And for the first time, when she was doing online dating, she was learning how to flirt, have fun, and guess what? She finally met the one. And where? Online. So the reality is there's great people everywhere, and you do have to know how to navigate things and break bad habits to get the best results. And to help me talk more on this matter, I'm bringing in the big guns here. She is going to help me tackle some key questions and strategies on how to navigate online. She's the chief dating officer of the dating site Coffee Meets Bagel. Are you there? Okay, you're going to have to say your name because I'm going to botch it again.
Oh, no worries. This is Dawoon. I'm the Chief
Dawoon.
Dating Officer of Coffee Meets Bagel.
Dawoon. Hi, welcome. So,
Hi, Kimmy.
this is just, first of all, I had so much fun going on to your amazing podcast.
I know, that was really fun.
It was fun, and we were talking about flirting and all that, but I was excited to have you on because you are just as smart, and you see a lot of things on the back end. So I really was interested, first of all, in hearing more about your role there and like what got you into it, and maybe tell us a little more about Coffee Meets Bagel because I know not everyone knows it.
Right. So first of all, Coffee Meets Bagel is a dating app, not for all daters out there. We are particularly dating app for people who are looking for long-term relationships. So we often say that we have a community of better, quote unquote, better daters, meaning people who are looking for something more authentic, more serious than a casual kind of a hookup or one night meetup. We're there, and we emphasize this a lot because I know that one of the biggest pain points of online dating is running into people who are not looking for the same thing, and then you end up feeling like you wasted a lot of time on the wrong people. And
Mm.
so by making sure that our brand really speaks clearly to those people who are interested in, people who are looking for long-term relationship. In fact, more than 90% of our Coffee Meets Bagel daters have told us that that's what they're looking for. We make it much more efficient and more productive for our members to be able to find something that they want. So that's Coffee Meets Bagel in a nutshell. And my role, Chief Dating Officer, it's evolved over time. So functionally, I actually had marketing and customer experience for our team. Uh, but as I've been running Coffee Meets Bagel for many, many years now, and through that journey, during that time, I've also dated a lot myself. So when I first started Coffee
Oh.
Meets Bagel, yeah, I was with somebody and then we ended up breaking up. And for the next like 5 years or so, 5, 6 years, I was on Coffee Meets Bagel as well as other dating apps, actually, really actively using the dating apps to learn and also to find relationship myself. And one of the things that I learned through all that experience is that it's not enough just put some people who are potentially interesting to our daters in front of them. That's very important because everything starts with that meetup. We have to introduce you to people you want to take the time to go and meet and who also wants to go and meet you. So everything starts there. So that's very important. However, there's so much that needs to go on between the time you meet until you get into a long-term relationship. And this part about being able to, guide our daters through that difficult, sometimes challenging dating journey, I realize is very important if we were to really be serious about our mission, which is to give everyone a chance at love, that long-term relationship. And so we decided to invest more and more resources on that funnel, or I guess the steps that comes after you meet up. How do you
Yeah.
date well? How do you not engage in behaviors that really sabotage your goal when it comes to dating? And so my job is to really guide my product team, customer experience team, and the marketing team in terms of what is a healthy dating principles that we really want to convey to our daters. So that's kind of the explanation behind the title Chief Dating Officer.
That's so interesting, and I didn't know that you were dating yourself, like,
Oh yeah.
you were like, you were
Oh yeah.
your own experiment, so to speak, and then did
Exactly.
yeah, I wondered, like, okay, so as you were going through the process, did you start noticing some, like, drastic, I guess, mistakes that you were making and then other users were making that you kind of either self-corrected or also used that information to help the app be more user-friendly or, anything like that that
Oh,
came out of it?
totally. Yeah. And one of the reasons why I can confidently say that, Coffee Meets Bagel, I know it works for, especially for people looking for long-term relationship. One is because I was using it, and I actually, two of my long-term relationships came from Coffee Meets Bagel.
Ah,
And the second thing, the reason why I also feel very confident about some of the advice that I am able to share, or healthy dating principles that I've come up with for our company, is that I've gone on so many, more than probably 100 first dates myself, and I know what it's like to be in that shoes. Uh, sometimes I felt burnt out. Sometimes I needed to take a break, and a lot of it just really comes from the tried and true experience that I've gone through, and also, of course, observing our daters. Um, And yeah, there's so many, I mean, things that I, engaged in the very beginning, not knowing kind of what the best practices are myself. And I was very different by the end of it.
Well, I was gonna say, and this is what I teach people all the time, kind of what I was saying in the beginning, is that the more you use it, the more you practice, the better you become. It's just like anything else. And I don't think people realize that it could really be a tool to learn some skills that maybe you
Right.
didn't have before. For instance, well, our podcast was about flirting, and that's a huge, I think, pain point for a lot of people, where I
Mm-hmm.
see them having these conversations online, but it's like looking at a LinkedIn exchange, like it's like this business transaction, and then it goes nowhere fast, and so I wondered, as you were going through it, what did you self-correct? Like, what was something in your
Well,
personal.
I think, kind of the biggest thing that came from all those experience of going on hundreds of different dates is is first that comfort level, right?
Mhm.
I find some of our daters, they only want to go out on a date with like very particular people or somebody who they
Oh,
think is
yeah.
like for sure, 100% in their mind probability of like having chemistry or something like that. I really encourage people, kind of probably similar to you, Kimmy, if you're kind of a maybe, always say yes. And it's
Yes.
not a waste of time, because as you get to meet more people, you learn to be more comfortable. I mean,
Mhm.
being like online dating, if you think about it, it's not a natural thing, right? Like you don't know a lot about this person, and you're kind of meeting up to see if you guys click. And with that, because with that comes, like, like with everything else, it's nerve-wracking. And unless you've done it over and over again, you're not going to be able to be yourself. And that sounds like it's like such a cliche, being yourself, like, okay, well, like, everybody says that, but it
Yeah.
is so important, because so many first dates just don't go, um that could have gone really well, just don't go anywhere, because we're really nervous. We don't say the things that it's kind of coming out, but it's kind of in our head, and then we kind of second guess ourselves and hold
Yeah.
ourselves back. Even if like lighthearted comments or anything like that, it's just you're just kind of like quiet, basically.
Mhm.
And the only way you can actually get through that is practice. And so just like having gone on many many dates, I was able to become more and more myself, and just show off my personality more, not in a way like, oh, I'm going to show off my personality, but I was just being natural, right?
Yeah.
And of course that just doesn't work for everyone, like not everyone liked me, but it was, a lot more people got to see the real me. And I was having a lot more fun too. Like the conversation became a lot more interesting than just having a small talk, because I just, was nervous about not knowing what to say, so then I wouldn't really say anything.
Yeah, I love what you said about, sometimes when people will go online and they look for a certain like qualification or a certain person. I call it being target specific. I see this all the time when I coach people. They'll walk into a place and they scan the room, and then they say, "Oh, there's no one here for me." And honestly, people do that online and offline.
Right.
And if you think about it, what you said is so true. Like, it doesn't feel natural in the ways of how it's formatted. Like
Hmm.
you're looking at a computer, you're looking at a resume, so to speak, and you're trying to have a conversation. But the reality is that if you think about it as it being no different than walking into a party, in
Yeah.
fact, walking into a party is even more nerve-wracking because you don't even have anything on any. So that's why, like, I'm teaching people how to use observation and start conversations based on what they see of the person and ask questions. You can do the same thing online. So it's just a mental block, I think, a lot of
Yeah.
times. And once
Yeah.
once you get practice, what shows up in one area of your life usually leaks into others,
Oh
good
yeah.
and bad, right? So as you're learning how to get more comfortable, as you said, with yourself and introducing yourself to strangers, that can even help with your offline interactions.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, offline party is the same thing. Like, there is like, okay, you go somewhere and there's somebody that you think is sort of interesting, and walking up to them. I mean, does that there's nothing that's also like equally unnatural, quote unquote, in a way. And of course, because of that, it's nerve-wracking, right? You're trying to make a good
Mhm.
impression. You don't really know this person. It's just as nerve-wracking, like maybe if not more, because you don't know anything actually about this person. At least like if you met online and both of you expressed interest in meeting up, so there was something about you that the other person was interested in, versus like if you're just walking up to somebody in a party, you have no idea if what they're thinking about you, right? And so it actually is even more nerve-wracking. And so the more practice you get going on those dates, you're going to feel comfortable no matter in what way you end up meeting this new person.
Yeah, and so, like, with you, how did it happen that you met your person? So you kept practicing and you saw things that were working, things that weren't, and so how did you know, like, this guy was it? And, like, how did it happen online?
I think this that I one time I was listening to Sarah Blakely's talk, and she said something very interesting about her and her husband Jesse Itzler, and they're a
Mhm.
great, amazing couple, one of the couples that I really look up to. And she said her dad told her once that choosing your long-term partner is the most important, probably one of the most, if not the most important decision of your life. And it's going to be the easiest decision of your life.
Ah,
And, I don't know if this experience is actually true for everyone. Certainly was true for her, and it resonated a lot with me. And again, I think that came from experiences. I actually dated quite a bit, and I've been in many, many relationships. And so my current husband, when he came along, um, it just, I guess I just kind of knew very easily that this
mhm.
was it. And the reason why, again, is because I've been in many, many wrong relationships. So I knew what it was like to be in a wrong relationship. And I think a lot of people end up focusing on, like, is this person the one?
Yes,
I,
yes.
I think the one advice that I share with a lot of my friends and sometimes daters as well is that rather than focusing on the person, I would really focus on how the relationship is making you feel. The relationship that is created between you and the other person is its own entity. Like, this person may show up very differently with another person, not
Mhm.
you. You it could be the most amazing person, but somehow you end up in a toxic relationship with you, and vice versa. And you really have to make sure that, I think, to take moment to kind of reflect on, how does this relationship feel to me? And one thing that we know is very important, and one of the primary role of love, why do we love, is a sense of connection, belonging, and safety, and that it creates. And so, does this relationship really create that for you? Does it feel like a home for you that you can actually get to? And when you think about it, um, you feel so belonged to and understood, that it almost gives you more courage to
Mm.
be able to go out there, explore yourself more, and push yourself more, because that foundation of this, like, sense of connection and belonging is so strong. I think that is, and this is a science, right? This is, this, I'm just not kind of like making it up. It's
Mhm.
there is a particular uh, role that relationships are supposed to serve, starting with our primary relationship that starts with our
With
parents.
our parents, right.
Um, and and human beings are just not biologically formed to actually, like, survive on our own, right? We have to belong to a community for our own survival. and our attachment or relationship with our loved one when we become an adult, like that becomes a primary relationship. So that really has to be the connection and safety and belonging has to be the role that it serves. And so if it doesn't do that, then you need to kind of think about why, right? Like, why do I feel unsafe
Yeah.
in this relationship? And this is one of the reasons why one of the major red flag that I say you need to look out for is somebody who's very inconsistent. Like
Mhm.
it's so good when it's good and it's so bad when it's bad. That doesn't create sense of safety because you never know if it's going to be good or bad, right? And that is one of the biggest red flag. And it's very confusing because sometimes when it's good, it's really good. So you think it could be it. But if you think about the relationship and you're not feeling that that connection, safety, and whatnot, to the point where you feel like you can like be yourself more and just kind of go out there more. I think that's one of the biggest signals that you should be looking out for when it comes to knowing if this person or if this relationship is it or not.
I love that you're focusing on the person and how they feel, like how you said it's almost like coming home. It's so weird that you're talking about this because I literally just got off the phone with a client who I've been working with over time, and she had gotten into a really unfortunate toxic relationship.
Mm,
And one of her patterns, talk about like, going back to the family of origin, is that she's always been an over caretaker and she's always been focused on the guy and not herself. And
mm,
so she was attracting lopsided
mm,
relationships.
mm,
She would attract the narcissist, she would attract the fixer uppers because she was really good at making other people feel amazing, but she was losing track of how she felt in it.
right.
So I love that you're bringing it to the quote unquote home base, and it's like walking into a place and you're like, "Ooh, I love how this feels," not based on, "Oh, I wonder how other people feel about the house."
Yeah,
It's
or what
like,
qualities does this person have? They have like
yeah,
XYZ. They could have everything that, all the check boxes, but still somehow the relationship itself isn't making you feel safe. And
yeah,
it could be a number of things. It could be them, it could be you also. Like the
that's right.
combination could just be not be working, right? We talk about different attachment styles, and I don't know, depending on what your personal attachment style also is, you could be drawing out like the worst side of each other. And so that's why I say, how does just thinking about how does this relationship make me feel? I think just reflecting on that, I'm not saying like do it every day or something, but
Mhm.
when you are wondering the question of like, is this person it? I think that's a really important question.
It is. You brought up inconsistency as a red flag. I wondered, based on just the back end of things, because I get this question all the time. How do you detect scammers, or how do you deflect them? I mean, what advice would you tell people around that?
Yeah. Well, one big thing that you could, it's interesting. There are actually like very easy piece, low
Uh-huh.
hanging fruit. There scammers have very common traits,
Patterns. Yeah, yeah.
patterns. Yeah. So we actually have a blog post on it that we circulate to every new users who sign up. Hey, like watch out for these things. Like, so for example, they often say they're overseas. Their job is
Right.
something like military based, that's something that takes them overseas. Oftentimes their English isn't, their degrees are overqualified, like I'm a PhD in whatever, but somehow their English is like, grammar is off a little bit here and there. Their chat responses or their profile is extremely long. And so those are some of the signs that you can look for in terms of scammer. Um, what I think is an ideal profile that is like very relatively low risk. It's a scammer, like the profile is unique, right? Like in a way that doesn't it's not like one line or blank, but it's also not like 10 pages.
Yeah.
and and so
Harlequin romances. Yeah.
right, and this is one of the reasons why also writing a unique profile is important, because
Yeah.
you signal to the other person that you're actual real person, right? You're not somebody who's pretending to be somebody else. And when I say unique, I don't mean like you can't put anything that no one, like you, it has to be like the only thing, you're the only person who are mentioning something. Like, don't put that kind of pressure on yourself. What I mean by unique is just personal. So something, one of the things that I put on my profile is, at Coffee Meets Bagel, there is like, I like, I appreciate section that's one of the prompts that you can choose to create your profile. And there are many, many others. And one of the, I chose to answer I am prompt. And one of the, what I wrote is I am someone looking for, I am in a quest for my personal legend is what I wrote.
Mm.
And it's a quote from the book The Alchemist, which is one of my favorite books.
Oh, it's fantastic.
And so, I mean, is it like, is no one else using that quote? I don't know. But the point is not that, but it's very personal to me. And so a lot of them knew that like somebody who's a scammer wouldn't really very not likely to use that kind of personal statement as a profile. And it was also a great kind of conversation starter. And
Yeah.
people would guess where the quote is from. Some people would recognize it, and we would talk about the book. Anyway, I digress.
No, I was just actually going to say the exact same thing because as a coach, that's one of the things I tell, like, avoid grocery lists of like, I like traveling, I like books, I like, no, tell me what book you like, tell me where you have
Right.
gone. And if you focus on the story and not on the facts, to me, those are the best, kind of profiles and ways of
Oh, I love that.
starting
Focus on the story and
conversation.
not the facts. Yeah.
Yeah, because and that's honestly how good communication should be when you're at a party. And if you really treat online dating as a virtual party, if you just go up to someone and say, "I like your hat in that picture. Where are you?" That's a much better entry than some, boring, "Hey, how are you?" But you got to give people something to talk about.
Yeah.
So that's great advice because you can tell that it's not a scammer, it's a real person. And I think you'll get better connections with people.
Yeah, yeah, true. I mean, I love that. That's a really great advice. I'm gonna keep that for my notes, like tell
You're
a
going to
story,
steal
not a
it.
fact. Yeah. Because I like traveling, I like cooking. That's better than not writing anything, but it really is a list of facts. There's no emotion in it. There's no
That's right.
yeah, there's like no personal story behind it. So that's why it's not as good as, I don't know, I love to cook my grandma's secret recipe that
Yeah.
it came down from Sicily. And that tells something about, that's like a very personal story.
That's right. And that's so much more interesting,
Right.
and there there was a person who I was working with, and it literally just listed the entire paragraph as like 1,000 things that I like this, I like that, I like this, I like that, I like this. I'm like, oh my gosh. First of all, it's so boring, but it looks like you copied and pasted from somebody else. Like it doesn't distinguish you from anybody.
Right.
And I had to do some practice. And this is again another like opportunity for practice. Have them practice telling me a story around one of the items. I said, okay, so it says you like to travel. Where did you go? And tell me a story about what happened. And then we took that excerpt and we put it into the
Mm,
profile. And that to me is something that can be not only like a successful kind of outcome when you do something
mm-hmm.
like that, but you'll have more fun doing it because you'll have way more fun having conversations, having those kind of stories than just the facts. So,
Right, right,
yeah,
right.
awesome. Well, I, I guess my last question, because I know we're almost out of time, are there any tips or statistics, from I guess your app standpoint that you wanted to share with your audience in ways of like just enlightenment or anything
Yeah.
like
Well, so speaking of the unique profile, one of the analysis that we did pretty early on during Coffee Meets Bagel, I gave a TED talk on this. And for the TED talk, I was trying to parse out, hey, what is the difference between either the profile or the behavior of people who actually met somebody on Coffee Meets Bagel versus people who haven't. And so thankfully, because we have data, we were able to analyze a bunch of different things. And one of my thesis going in was like, oh, maybe the people who met somebody on Coffee Meets Bagel are, I don't know, they went to better school, or they're liked more by other people, like they're more popular, whatever, right? And none of that actually mattered, which is great news.
Mm.
So, your how much you're liked, the type of school you went, your job, like none of those actually really mattered. The only difference that we were able to find between the couples who met somebody on Coffee Meets Bagel and people who are still using Coffee Meets Bagel to look for their long-term relationship was the length of their profile, and length of their chat. So it really spoke to the engagement, that people were willing to put in. And again, I'm not saying that you need to be writing 10 pages like description, right? But it really sends a lot of signal to the other people what your intention is. You're not there to explain what your intention is, so they're gonna just kind of guess from looking at your profile how serious you are about meeting up. And so, like, really just do take the time, even if it's like 5-10 minutes, to write something, a personal story on profile. And also when you connect, instead of just saying hi, like the length of chat really matters, again, as a
Yeah.
signaling impact. Just know that they're, like probably like what you're doing, they're meeting, there's, even on Coffee Meets Bagel, which is like, we curate limited number of people, but it's still, number of people that everybody's kind of talking to. And so it's very easy to dismiss somebody if they don't really seem engaged. And unfortunately, we've kind of created this like vicious cycle where, if someone ghosts me, someone doesn't engage with me, so I kind of do that to other people. And that kind of became like a thing that's okay. But you really have to break it. You can't kind of just like ghost and whatever else because other people are doing it and expect a different kind of results. And it's statistically proven that that is the only difference that we saw. So I really want to emphasize that engagement is important on your profile and chat. Again, you don't have to be spending 10 hours, but at least spend like 5-10 minutes like looking at it, think about what you want to share, and change it up and experiment. So that really matters.
That is so important. Ladies, successful ladies, are you listening to this? Because my high achievers, they always obsess about, the company they work for and the job that they have. And, they'll even on first dates, they'll lead with that kind of thing, thinking that that's what will impress a man. And what you're saying is so true. And what I tell them is it's more about the feeling that people have when they're interacting with you versus what you know. It's
Yeah.
that likability factor, the connection, the emotions that get elicited from that is what makes or breaks whether or not that person wants to see you again, hands
Hmm.
down. So it's not even what you say that's important, but how a person feels. And I think you just highlighted that with the statistics. So I love that. And it also highlights how important a first impression is because you think it's fast in person, it's even faster online. I think that it's what they're saying, it's 7 seconds, but that's in person. I don't even know statistically if
Oh, I'm sure it's
it's probably
definitely less than
quicker.
7 seconds on online. Yeah.
Yeah, so definitely not only focus on your profile, but I'm gonna harp on the pictures because those are equally important, ladies and
Oh
gentlemen.
yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Pictures. I mean, pictures are actually more important, right?
Yes, they
Than
are.
visuals. Picture like
Yes.
but the picture is 1,000 words, right? So
Yeah.
that is important as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on and sharing not just like your wealth of information, but also your personal story. Cause like what we're talking about, I think people can relate so much to you going through all that you did and you found true love. And here you are now a mom. So congrats. It worked for you. It can work for everybody. So thank you. Is there any like last words of wisdom that you wanted to share or even like how
Yeah,
somebody can,
yeah, sure. I talked about the dating principles that we developed at Coffee Meets Bagel, and we actually touched on a lot of it. One is that dating takes practice,
yep.
and two, two is that dating is all about putting yourself out there and getting hurt. And if you're not getting rejected and hurt, you're actually not dating, really. Like,
Bam.
So we talked about that.
Yeah.
And then the third thing that I really emphasize a lot is I think especially the those of us who start dating for the first time, we're very protective of ourselves, which is natural, right? We don't want to get hurt. And so we want to play it cool. We don't want to be, even if I'm like, I don't know, I'm interested in somebody, we don't really want to say it. We kind of wait for someone else to kind of approach us. And then if, oftentimes I ask, like, why are you waiting? But then, I get a response like, well, why should I be the one who's doing it, right?
Oh, I hear that all the
Um,
time. Yeah.
and my answer to that is because that's what you want, right? You want long-term relationship. And so does it really matter if you're the one who's actually asking the question first or not? And a lot of us worry about, I think, looking desperate, and feeling like we're needy, which is a very legit concern. And I always say that, hey, there's a huge difference between making somebody feeling wanted versus being really needy, right? Like making somebody feeling wanted is being really honest about how you feel. Hey, I had a great time. I would like to see you again. And if the answer is no, just being really cool with that and, walking away because you know that you're actually able to meet somebody else that's also really awesome. Being needy is when you actually get that no, you're kind of like clinging on to that and be like, why? And then like texting again and again and again, even after there was a clear no. That's being needy.
Mhm.
I think being very honest about how you feel and making the other person feeling wanted is incredibly sexy and it requires a ton of confidence. And so, and it's a distinction that I think is very important. The only reason why I think I'm actually with my partner is because I became very comfortable with sharing how I felt. Especially because my partner is somebody who's like super shy. He was never able, he was gonna do anything actually on his
Aw,
own.
yeah.
And so, I was like, I was done with the BS, and so I just kind of remember like being authentic requires saying really how you feel like when you're interested in somebody and not being afraid of making sure that they know that you want them, right? And that's a good thing. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, I love it. It takes 2 to tango, right? I believe that both sexes have responsibility and approachability and how we connect with one another, so thank you so, so much for coming on, and this was awesome.
Thank you, Kimmy.
Thank you. And thanks for joining me today, of course. You all listening, this has been the Charisma Quotient. I'm your host, Kimmy Seltzer. Remember, you can build confidence, make connections, and find love from the outside in. And make sure you go to my site, kimmyseltzer.com. If you are having trouble navigating virtual dating as we're talking about this and you don't know where to start, I have 2 opportunities for you. First, just hop on a free online strategy session and I will help you get started. Just click on the link you see in the show notes to book it. And second, I have something kind of cool. If you haven't heard already, I'm releasing a free video series called Awaken Your Feminine Energy to energize your sexy confidence. All you have to do is sign up by clicking the link you see in the show notes, and you'll start receiving the videos with actionable tips and exercises around topics like body language, conversation techniques. We just talked about that, flirting, and so much more. Just sign up and remember, working on you is working on your dating life. That's all for now.